sets the tone to understand that how we lose the child within us. As we start growing up, as we get caught in the mundane realities of life, we lose the innocence, we lose that childlike curiosity, the enthusiasm, the innocence in us. So today's presentation is about understanding what is inner child, how homeopathy and inner child can help us heal through the psychoneuro-endocrine axis. So welcome to the world of the inner child, and let us understand that all of us have that little child within us, which perhaps we have forgotten, we have lost connection with. And today we'll understand how healing can occur through the psychoneuro-endocrine axis by integrating homeopathy with inner child. So let's understand what is the concept significance of inner child healing. Basically, we are multidimensional beings made in the likeness of our creator. So all of us are souls, and souls, as we know, are have descended from the source. So all of us carry that little अंश जो कहते हैं अपने विधाता का, वो हमारे अंदर सब में होता है, और ये जानना बहुत जरूरी है। और अगर ये हमें जानना है तो हमें अपने अंदर के जो छोटे बालक या बालिका से जुड़ना बहुत जरूरी है, समझना जरूरी है कि हम सब में there is this inner child which is there. This portion of self which is innocent and godlike is called as the inner child. So there's not a, it's, we make look at it as if there is a small child within us, but also that we need to understand that the part of us which is the most pure and innocent within us is that inner child which is godlike. This little spark which is there within us is eternally loving, joyful, and all-embracing. It is that part of us which is creative, which is playful. We want to explore, we are inquisitive. But as we start growing up, as we become adults, we lose that spark within us. But it is always there, and it reminds us of our divinity and guides us back to the creator when we are on this spiritual path. So it helps us to understand that divinity within us. But what happens to this spark which is there within us? How is it that we lose that spark? So what happens is when we are growing up, we have to survive in this world against all those experiences which we are passing through as children. So we tend to protect ourselves by using certain defense mechanisms, part of the psychological processes. We use masks. And as a result, when we start using these masks, then we disown our inner child. So जो हमारे अंदर जो छोटा बच्चा है, उसे हम भूल जाते हैं, उसके ऊपर एक परत आ जाती है जो शायद हमें अपनी सच्चाई से दूर लेके जाता है। अगर हमें अपने अंदर जो ईश्वर का स्वरूप है उसे अगर फिर से जुड़ना है, if we want to reclaim our divinity, if we need to connect with the God within us, then we need to remove this mask, and only then we will regain that child within us. We need to be aware. How can we do this? Is by becoming aware that this child which was there has been taken away because of all the traumas, all the emotional experiences which we have passed through. So we need to heal those experiences. What happens when we lose the inner child? When we lose this childlike part of us, it leads to emptiness. एक अंदर void बन जाता है. And this void cannot be filled by anything else. We try to fill this void by so many other things which we feel will give us joy. तो कुछ लोग पैसे के पीछे भागते हैं, कुछ लोग नाम, या कुछ लोग कई सारी चीजों से ये जो void है वो भरने की कोशिश करते हैं. हम चाहते, sorry,
presentation mode of the PPT.
Sorry.
Can you make the PPT presentable? Like it's a full screen is coming.
Okay. So do I make it smaller?
No, you have to make it larger.
Larger, bigger.
इससे larger तो नहीं होगी.
सर स्लाइड शो पे आप क्लिक करेंगे तो ये फुल स्क्रीन हो जाएगा.
अच्छा, एक सेकंड.
प्रेजेंटेशन मोड, या
उसी में है.
हाँ, यस.
So
और सर नीचे जो है अगर आप वहां पे क्लिक करें कप जैसा बना होता है तो वहां पे आप क्लिक करेंगे तो
तो उस
फुल
पर क्लिक नहीं हुआ अभी।
पे क्लिक नहीं हुआ सर।
एक सेकेंड, कौन सा, ये वाला ना?
दिस
हाँ
वन
हाँ, उसी पे किया है।
अगेन कैन यू डू दिस?
This is how it appears now. Is the slide getting covered?
हाँ सर, ऊपर में भी स्लाइड शो होता है, वहां पे क्या करेंगे ना, ऊपर में एनिमेशन के बगल में, इससे थोड़ा सा ऊपर ऊपर सर, उसी लाइन में राइट जाएंगे, स्लाइड शो आप दिख रहा है एनिमेशन के जस्ट बाद।
Insert design transition sir where you was like yes go up.
The task bar is coming वहां पे आ रहा है।
Yes,
एक
yes.
second.
Go up transition animation and slideshow.
हाँ,
Yes, yes.
okay.
फ्रॉम बिगिनिंग,
From beginning होगा तो
जो फ्रॉम करंट स्लाइड कर दीजिए।
from ऐसे ही आ रहा है। This is the best option which is there.
No problem sir. No problem.
Uh, so as we begin to grow up, as we become teenagers, as we become adults, we tend to lose these parts of us and the void becomes bigger and bigger. So what is the process of healing in this? What needs to be done is those parts of us which have been lost, they need to be brought back. When we integrate those parts which we have lost, which we have disowned, कभी कभी हम खुद उन चीजों से दूर हट जाते हैं क्योंकि वो बहुत तकलीफ देह होती, और उसी वजह से हमारे अंदर ये void बन जाता है. So when we bring back those parts which we have disowned, we reintegrate within us. That is what allows the healing process to be complete.
वहां पे सर 50% है, वहां पे माइनस प्लस प्लस की ओर इसको स्लाइड करें।
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah. Yes.
Is this okay?
Yeah.
So this is ये जो idea है, this is not something which is very new या अलग है, ऐसे नहीं है. ये चीज जो है वो हमारे पुराने पूर्वजों से भी आई है. तो हर religion, every religion includes and understands this aspect of how the inner child is very important. When Jesus says that truly I say to you, unless you change and become like children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. So what he says is that you don't have to become a child, but कानी हरकतें करने की जरूरत नहीं है, लेकिन हमारे अंदर जो बच्चा है, अगर हम उससे फिर से कनेक्ट हो सकते हैं, so that is what will allow us to go back home. When he says kingdom of heaven, it means going back to the source. So how does all this happen? होता क्या है कि जिस वजह से we lose the child within us? So when we are growing older, our past has very strong influence on us. So we carry our impressions from the past life. We carry those जो हम लोग संस्कार कहते हैं, वो हमारी आत्मा साथ में जब हम जन्म लेते हैं उसी दौरान ये सारे संस्कार हम अपने साथ लेके आते हैं. So we carry these impressions within us, which are our sensitivities and prejudices. And when we come into this world, we start perceiving reality in the light of these prejudices or perceptions which we have. So our perception is always colored. We see our environment right from the point conception happens. So जब पहली बार there is a union of the male and the female zygotes, So it happens that all these experiences are part of the embryo, and as the embryo grows, हम लोग जब अपनी माँ की कोख में भी जब बच्चा बड़ा होता है, तो ये सारे अनुभव or environmental experiences, the mother's state during pregnancy, what is the mother feeling during her pregnancy, influences the child. So all these experiences the child carries within itself in the subconscious mind. The birth traumas. So while the child is being born, many times there are experiences where there is a forceps delivery, या delayed labor है, या mother को epidural anesthesia दिया जाता है, या जब बच्चा पैदा होता है. So all these are called as birth traumas, and when these experiences leave very deep imprints on our subconscious mind, and that is what leads to this colored perception. So when we need to understand that all these experiences are not just something which can be a part of our process of healing, we will also need to understand that how all these aspects can be understood from the historical and mythological perspective. So inner child healing has its roots in ancient mythology. हम जब कहानियां सुनते हैं तो हमें बाल कृष्ण या सन ऑफ गॉड जीसस या बाल गणेश, ये सारे जो mythological characters हैं, these are nothing but symbolic characters who are reminding us that there is a child within us which can heal us.
Dr. Rahul, right now
Sorry.
on the screen there is PPT number 10.
Sorry.
Slide number 10 is there.
Hmm.
Right now. The purpose, everyone can see the purpose only. I think slides are not moving.
Slides are not moving. I'll stop the share.
Or we can do one thing, Dr. Rahul, you can stop sharing the PPT also. And,
Yeah.
thank you. Better.
एक second. So I'll share only when there is something really very essential to understand.
Right, sir.
So how do we lose this child within us? So what happens is, as we are growing up, हमारे ऊपर जो संस्कार हमारे पेरेंट्स करते हैं, या सोशल कंडीशनिंग कहते हैं, पेरेंटल कंडीशनिंग है, जो डिसिप्लिन है, जो रूल्स होते हैं कुछ कुछ फैमिलीज पे, वो सारे रूल्स हमारे ऊपर एक हमारी सोच को शेप करते हैं. We look at things from the perspective of how our parents have made us understand the world, or how society looks towards things. So all these things influence our thinking. There are certain traumatic experiences in our life. There could be deaths in the family, separation, abandonment. All these aspects leave a deep impact on the child. As a result, when there are such impacts on us, we become vulnerable. Children are very, very sensitive. So when children are influenced by these experiences, they feel helpless, they feel misunderstood. And many times we feel that as children, we were not treated properly. It is because of our fragile nature as children that we are more vulnerable to being harmed or being traumatized. And it doesn't mean that there has to be very big trauma. Even a small gesture, angry look from a teacher, or a small casual comment made by a relative can leave a certain deep impact on our mind, which influences how we look towards ourselves, how we look towards people around us and our reality. So what happens is, when we pass through these experiences, to avoid any further pain, the child within us starts withdrawing. So we tend to lose those qualities. If a child is very fun-loving, if the child is carefree, and if the parent reprimands saying, so there is this experience of an old lady who came to my clinic, and she was suffering from depression. She was 65, and somehow she said, I feel that as if I am looking through a wheel and I am not able to find my road. I don't know what I am supposed to do in life. I am lost because my children have grown up and now I have no purpose left in life. So when we connected with her childhood memory during a regression session, she saw that she was a little girl who was excited to see a procession going, and her father scolded her. Her mother was away and she was with her father. And when her father scolded her, why are you getting so excited? What's there to be excited? And tomorrow, if your mother dies, what are you going to do? And that left such a deep impact on her, which she realized during the session, that from then onwards, she felt that I cannot look forward to anything. If I am excited, if I am looking forward to anything, then I will lose my loved ones. And since then onwards, she would only do things which were told to her. And as a result, her sole purpose of life was to do what came and not do what her heart called out to. So when she relived this memory, she understood that where the whole experience of trauma, where she was deeply impacted, and that helped her to release that trauma. And then onwards, she was able to do what her heart was calling her to do. So she started writing. She was a school teacher, but she started writing blogs. She started traveling. She realized that her purpose was to experience life and go through various experiences which will help her feel more and more enriched. So that is how healing inner child trauma can really help us. What also happens is we tend to build defenses around us to protect ourselves. So as a result, the essence of the child is lost within us. So in the psychological parlance, we call them as defense mechanisms. So we tend to use defense mechanisms, which are commonly used defenses are suppression. So if you're feeling an emotion, you would suppress it. There is also a defense which is called as repression. So sometimes the trauma is so painful that we completely block those experiences, those memories, those feelings. So these defenses are used by the mind to protect ourselves. So what happens is, how do we lose the inner child? So I'll just quickly share this part so that we'll understand. So the mechanism of losing is when during the process of natural development, like I said, when there is birth trauma, when there are conflicts in the family, there are interpersonal conflicts, there are certain parental styles of upbringing. So parents may be very disciplinarian. Sometimes it is about social acceptability. We want to be accepted by our society, by our peers, by our teachers, certain value system which we follow. So when we are trying to fit into all this as children, that leads to a lot of trauma. We experience lack of love and we feel unloved, unaccepted, or abandoned. And the child within us withdraws. So, yeah, just a second. What happens when we experience these things is we tend to create certain beliefs. एक तरह की सोच हमारे अंदर बन जाती है. जैसे in this case, the case which I shared about this old lady, she believed that if she follows what she wants to do, if she feels excited about life, then she will lose her loved ones. So this conditioning, ये सोच हमारे सारे नजरिए को बदल देती है, and we tend to react to situations from what our past experiences is. So we keep playing old tapes. जैसे वही tape हमारे दिमाग के अंदर चलती रहती है. If we have been criticized by our parents, then we will be self-critical. अगर कोई हमें कहता है कि तुम्हें इतना भी नहीं आता है, तुम बुद्धू हो, तो वही हमारे दिमाग में चलता रहता है कि मैं बुद्धू हूँ, मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकता. You're a failure. If a teacher says that, oh, you're such a failure, you cannot do anything in life, So these kind of beliefs we carry within us based on our past experiences as children, and these negative beliefs get reinforced by our experiences and we attract such people in our life. तो इसी तरह के अनुभव हमारे जिंदगी में बार बार आते हैं ताकि हम इनसे सीखें, लेकिन होता उल्टा ही है कि हम instead of learning from these experiences we tend to reinforce these negative beliefs about ourselves, and we feel more and more low about ourselves. So just now coming to our topic, how does this influence the psychoneuro-endocrine axis and how does this lead to illnesses? So if we understand this process, that the traumas in our childhood leads to limiting beliefs. हमारे सोचने का नजरिया बहुत ही limited बन जाता है. We tend to maladapt to reality. So whatever is the right kind of adaptation, the balance which needs to happen, instead of that we use maladaptive techniques. So we try to please people, we try to work very hard. So if I feel I'm a failure, I will work very hard to prove myself, and I go on reacting to circumstances. So that is a maladaptation. So we tend to create faulty patterns in our childhood, and that influences our mind and our belief system. So the mind then, if we understand, has a very strong influence on the nervous system. The nervous system influences the endocrine glands which are there in our body. So primarily the pituitary gland and the other endocrine glands which are there. So the thyroid gland which is there, the thymus which is there, the ovaries, the gonads. So all these are basically organs which secrete hormones and which influence our physiological functions. So physiological functions are governed by the endocrine glands and also our immune system. So that is where the whole balance lies. So the psychoneuro-endocrine axis, which is a very integral part of our health, is influenced when the mind is not at rest. So when we are stressed, we tend to the psychoneuro-endocrine axis gets disturbed, and that is what leads to illnesses. So time and again, when there is stress, we tend to find it difficult to deal with experiences which are there in our lives. And these experiences then influence the mind and the body axis. So in the conventional system of medicine, disease is only seen as a disturbance which is there at the level of the body. We understand disease as the symptoms of a particular disease, and we do not see the background behind the disease, which lies where the root lies in terms of the mind. The mind is the one where most of the illnesses originate. And because we are not able to deal effectively, we are not able to adapt to our circumstances, the stress is generated, and which leads to then its effects on the body. So we need to understand the disease as a combination of the physical symptoms as well as understand the cause which lies at the level of the mind. So homeopathy gives an answer to this question, and I would like to quote and share what homeopathy. Now, this is where integrating homeopathy with inner child healing is something which is very, very critical and useful. I would just like to quote this from one of our literature in homeopathy. So the material organism without the vital force is capable of no sensation, no function, no self-preservation. It derives all sensation and performs all the functions of life solely by means of immaterial being, the vital force, which animates the material organism in health and disease. So vital force is nothing but the soul in the spiritual parlance. In homeopathy, the term used is vital force. So if we understand that the disease originates not just at the level of the mind, but even beyond the mind, and before that, the disturbance happens at the soul level, where the primary disturbance is when the soul separates from the source and creates a illusion for itself that it is separate. So the origin of the disease lies at the level of the soul, and which is very similar to what homeopathy believes is that only when the vital force or the soul is disturbed, that reflects in terms of illness. The next aspect which is discussed in homeopathy is when a person falls ill, it is only the spiritual self acting vital force, that is, in spiritual aspects, the soul, which is deranged to such an abnormal state that can furnish the organism with its disagreeable sensations and incline it to the irregular process which we call as disease. So when we realize that the disturbance is not just at the level of the body or the mind, it is way beyond that, where the energy imbalance is happening at the level of the soul. So that is what is responsible for disease. Now, if we understand the whole process of disease from the medical perspective, then we will see that the emotions at the level of the mind reflect on the body as sensations. So as humans, we tend to want more and more pleasure, or we want to avoid pain. So whenever there is pain, it is only an indicator that something is imbalanced, something is wrong, and we need to pay attention to it. So the reflection at the body level, which is in form of a sensation, is an indicator of the imbalance. This sensation originates from the emotion, which is there at the level of the mind. So what happens is, when we don't pay attention to the sensations, the sensation becomes more and more fixed in form of physical symptoms. These physical symptoms are more at a subjective level, and as we do not pay more attention to it, they become more and more deeply entrenched. So they will start reflecting in form of a structural pathology, which we then see as illnesses at the physical level. So that is how the disease gets excuse me, completely entrenched into our body. So we tend to avoid pain and seek pleasure, but in this whole process, we are only allowing the disease to get more and more deeply entrenched into our body. So this is the process of disease. The disturbance begins at the level of the soul. It influences the mind and then percolates at the level of the body in form of physical illnesses. So we need to understand that diseases are nothing but a language which the body and the mind is creating, so that we are able to heal ourselves. How do we do that? Disease is something which seeks transformation. We don't have to cure, or when we conventionally say that annihilate disease, what is curing a disease is nothing but a transformation. If we are able to respond and not react, if we are able to make a choice based on the right perception, that will allow us to be able to adapt to our circumstances. And that is what will allow us to heal ourselves. So what happens in the process of inner child healing? So if we understand that each stage of childhood has a distinct inner child experience, these experiences are those to which we strongly react and create our belief system. When we feel that we are reacting unknowingly to the past, that is when we become aware and we are able to change this reality for ourselves. Knowing the origin of these feelings releases us from them and enhances our choice. So if we are able to become aware that where is this belief coming from? Why am I reacting? Why am I always feeling that people are going to abandon me? Many times we feel I am being rejected, or people are ignoring me, or sometimes people feel that I am always abandoned. Sometimes we feel that people are betraying us. So all these are beliefs which we hold within ourselves. But if we understand that these are beliefs and this is not our reality, and these beliefs are originating from our past experiences, which we have had when we were children, then we are able to release ourselves from these beliefs and feelings. That will allow us to change our perception. So how does the process of inner child healing work? When we relive those experiences. So inner child healing is a process where we regress back in time. The therapist takes you back in time by guiding you into a trance. And when we go back in time to that point where the origin of the belief lies, we relive the whole experience. So we relive the pain, the fear, the vulnerability. And once we relive these emotions, the process, the whole concept is, when you relive an experience, when you relive an emotion, we are able to release that emotional baggage which we are carrying. So we release all the fear-based emotions. Once we release these emotions, we are able to step back and look at the whole experience in a more detached way. When we are able to look at that experience in a detached way, we realize that this is something which happened in the past. It no longer is my current reality. My current reality is very different. I am no longer influenced by these beliefs. We enter into a heart space of compassion and surrender. So we are able to understand that whatever happened to us as children was an experience, and we no longer need to hold on to it. In fact, we now as adults, as mature adult selves, can be compassionate to that child within us. We can be able to support and give that security to the child within us, and that allows the child to blossom again. We are able to connect with that little child who's there in us and bring back all those qualities which we have lost. So we overcome fear of letting go and face the pain. So we are able to let go of all those experiences, and we are able to then experience the freedom to be who we are. We are able to accept fear and pain simply as part of life. We know that fear and pain are merely experiences which have come to us because we need to learn, we need to evolve, and so that we are able to be truly who we are. We are able to relive and express our essence. We open the door to the inner self. So that part of us which was hidden, that part of us which we had rejected, that part of us which we are afraid to express, we are able to connect with that part. We realize the spiritual longing in our soul to merge with the source, to feel one with the existence. So we are able to then experience ourselves as the innocent, that spark which is there, the true essence, the godlike part of us. And when we are able to connect with the godlike part of us, we realize that we are merely, we are not separate from the source, but we are a part of the source. We are able to connect with the divinity within us, and that is what allows us the process of healing. So when we acknowledge our true self, we awaken the child within, and awakening the child within us leads to the process of healing and returning to be who we truly are, the divine soul that we are. So this is the process of healing. Homeopathy in this whole process supports because homeopathy works in a very different way, where homeopathy, so when we do the process of inner child healing, and we are able to release those beliefs, but what happens is we after the healing process, we are coming back to the same circumstance again. The situation has not changed, people have not changed, though we might have changed, and there is a likely possibility that we might slip back into our old patterns. So to prevent that from happening, that is where the role of homeopathy is, where homeopathy is able to support, because homeopathy works at the level of the mind. So when the homeopathic medicine is prescribed, it is prescribed on the basis of understanding of the personality profile, where we understand the emotional conflicts, the emotional personality, and based on that, we select one medicine, which is called as the constitutional medicine. So this medicine is what helps the mind and the body to be able to adapt to its circumstances. So when we are able to adapt and cope better with our circumstances, that is when we are able to return back to disease. So homeopathy stimulates the mind, the mental processes in such a way that we are able to look at life and look at situations with the right perspective. So this is where homeopathy supports the inner child healing process. And that is how homeopathy and inner child are complementary to each other and help us on our journey of healing. So this is in short about how we can work through the psychoneuro-endocrine axis with the help of inner child healing and homeopathy. So Dr. Ranjan, shall I take questions, or shall we do a process quickly? Just a 10-minute process if we have the time.
पहले मित्रों से पूछ लेते हैं, हमारे ऑडियंस से, कि अगर आपके पास कोई सवाल है तो आप चैट में टाइप कर सकते हैं। और एक सवाल आप चैट में भी पढ़ सकते हैं डॉक्टर राहुल।
हाँ, किसी ने पूछा है शायद कि who can I see to find out more about healing the inner child via homeopathy? If you can tell me which part of the country you are, then maybe I can suggest people who I know who work with homeopathy in inner child healing. If somebody is not there in that part of the city, then maybe online consultation bhi ho sakta hai. Somebody is asked about our family values, our family belief system, our assumptions, interpretation, and inner child critic all affect our inner child. Very true, Veena ji, because जिस तरह से हमें हमारे ऊपर संस्कार किए जाते हैं, जो हमारी फैमिली ट्रेडिशन है, वैल्यू सिस्टम है, सही गलत का जो एक जोड़ा लेखा बोला जाता है, the way we are told that this is right, this is wrong, ऐसे होना चाहिए, ये गलत है, सही है, तो उसी बिलीफ को हम आगे लेके चलते हैं शायद, because we assume that this is how it is, this is how we need to carry ourselves, but that may not be always true for us. So what is true for somebody may not always be true for us, and that is what leads us to carry this belief. हम अपने ऊपर बहुत नाइंसाफी करते हैं because we have become critical of ourselves कि हमने कुछ गलत किया. We carry that guilt for a lifetime. So that is what influences our beliefs, and that is what affects our inner child.
One question is interesting.
Yeah.
How to accept anger and fear?
How to accept anger and fear. So we need to understand that where is the origin of anger and fear. जैसे अभी हमारी बात हुई उसमें कि when we are only talking about fear and anger, which is an expression. So many times what happens is we only get caught up by these expressions. But if we try to understand what lies behind anger and fear, so what we do is we try and understand what are the core beliefs which is leading us to feel the anger, which is making us fearful. So अगर हम ये समझ पाते हैं कि ये कहाँ से originate हो रहा है, what is the belief which we are carrying, So for example, I carry this fear that I will be abandoned. So it originates from this belief that I will always be abandoned. So then you work on that belief that I am always abandoned. Or if we are talking about anger, then where does the anger originate from? If I feel that anger originates, I always feel that I am not treated fairly, मेरे साथ हमेशा injustice होता है. So it is my sensitivity to injustice which I need to work on, that belief that I am always, life is not fair with me. So when we work on these beliefs, then automatically the expression in terms of anger or fear will be taken care of.
सवाल कई सारे आ रहे हैं डॉक्टर राहुल, तो हम सारे सवाल लेना संभव नहीं होगा।
हाँ, जितना हो सकता है।
और
सो क्विकली दो तीन और सवाल होम्योपैथी के बारे में कि व्हाई डज होम्योपैथी मेडिसिन नॉट वर्क, असर क्यों नहीं करती? अगर हम सही दिशा में जानकारी नहीं दे पाते, या अगर हम सही तरह से समझ नहीं पाते कि पेशेंट का पर्सनालिटी क्या है, पेशेंट का अंडरस्टैंडिंग अगर ठीक तरह से नहीं पकड़ में आता, तो कभी कभी मेडिसिन गलत हो जाती है। उसमें होम्योपैथी इज नॉट to be blamed, but the person who practices homeopathy needs to apply the principles of homeopathy in the right way, then homeopathy will definitely work. Anxiety के लिए homeopathy definitely सही है, क्योंकि like I explained to you earlier, it works more at the core level. So if we understand where the origin of the anxiety lies, and we treat it by understanding the personality, then homeopathy can really do wonders. Which deep-seated diseases can be treated by inner child healing? Most of the deep-seated, so all the psychosomatic illnesses, be it migraine, asthma, be it allergies, or skin conditions, I've treated urticaria, eczemas, psoriasis with inner child healing and homeopathy. At the level of the mind, we can see that major illnesses like depression, major depressive disorder, anxiety disorders, fears, phobias, obsessive compulsive disorders can be cured with homeopathy and inner child healing. Yes, somebody has said about affirmations. Affirmations definitely are useful in this process of healing, because like we discussed earlier, affirmations have a huge impact on the psychological aspect. So they can influence our subconscious mind. So psychoneuro-endocrine axis can be altered or can be balanced by the use of affirmations. So that is what Louis Hay has discussed in her book also. Somebody's asked about inner child healing therapist in Delhi. Yes, there are lots of good inner child healing therapists in Delhi. One is Mr. Hitesh Vashisht, जिनका शायद डॉक्टर रंजन ने अभी recently interview लिया था. अंबिका खन्ना जी है, तो ये दोनों काफी अच्छे थेरेपिस्ट हैं दिल्ली. हितेश वशिष्ठ and अंबिका खन्ना. They are in Gurugram. What is the difference between belief and disposition? Disposition is basically a quality, mix of our qualities. हमारे जो नेचर होता है, उसके अलग अलग जो पहलू होते हैं, उनको सब मिला के disposition बनता है, which is our personality. Whereas belief is something which arises from our disposition. So जिस तरह से हमारा जो एक कोई quality होता है, जैसे if quality of a person is hard working, so the hard working quality arises from a belief that if I do not work hard, I will fail. So the belief is, if I do not work hard, I will fail. The disposition is, I am a hard working person.